Hello, my name is Cristie Love. How are you today? I wrote a story today. Today is Saturday. I believe it's the 10th of June. June 10th, 2018. It's a story called A Man and a Woman's Wedding. A man was in the Navy. He saw a woman he liked. She was working in a club in the Philippines. The Navy man is from the United States. The woman would serve drinks, good meals, and delicious appetizers. There was dancing at the club. The man that serves in the Navy asked the woman who worked at the club to dance. They danced. They were dancing disco. Then they were dancing slow, with her arms around his neck and his hands around her waist. They danced slowly. She smiled in her beautiful smile. He smiled his wonderful smile. The song ended. She says, "Back to work." He then sat down with his Navy buddies. He said that he wants to marry her. His buddies smiled and said, "Way to go." The Navy man went up to her and asked if she wants to marry him. She says no. He sat back down with his buddies. That night, the woman went home and told her family that this Navy man asked her to marry him. Her brother says, "Do it, sis. You will be happy." The next day, the Navy man was there again in the evening. He ordered the same meal, adobo chicken with rice, pickled cucumbers for appetizers, and a Coca-Cola. He asked her again to marry her. She said no. He ate his food and asked her to dance. So they danced, and she smiled. As he smiled, he says to her, "You have a beautiful smile." "You have a beautiful smile," she says. "You have a nice smile," she says. Then he sat back down with his Navy buddies. He says, "I still want to marry her." She says no 2 times. Then closing arrived. Then she went home. The club was empty. Everyone left. The men in the Navy drove to the base when she went home. She told her mother and sister that the Navy man asked me to marry again. Her sister said, "You are lucky. Someone asked you to marry you?" Her mother said, "Honey, if you feel it in your heart that you could love someone as they love you, and they love you for who you are, he asked you to marry you. He asked you to marry him. You said twice no. Now think. If you want to marry someone who loves you for who you are, the choice is yours." The woman says, the woman who was asked to get married said, "Thank you, Mom." That night, everyone went to bed. She had a dream. It was Jesus who spoke with her. Jesus said, "You are a heart of love." Someone asked you to marry. "What will your answer be?" he asked. "The answer will come to you. He seems to love you for who you are." The next day came. The woman went to work. The Navy man came, and he ordered the same meal. Appetizers pickled, with the appetizers, pickled cucumbers, adobo chicken with his friends, and a Coca-Cola. Music came on from Lionel Richie. "I just called to say I love you." The Navy man asked the woman to dance with her. She smiled her beautiful smile that lightened his face. He put out his hand, and she put out hers. Then they swayed to the music, back and forth, just listening to that song. "I just called to say I love you." He puts out his hand, and she put out her hands, and they both danced. He then, after the music was over, he went on one knee, and he had his hand reaching out in his pocket. There was a size 7 engagement ring with a heart diamond. She smiled, the magical, beautiful, wonderful smile. He looked up at her and asked, "Will you marry me?" She smiles and she says, "Yes." He got up and smiled and gave her a hug and says to her, "You complete me. You made me happy. You made me a happy man." She said, "You are a great man." They went to church. The Navy man and his friends arranged for the church to have a nice wedding. Everyone came. Oh, they went to the church. Everyone came. The church was full. The woman wore a silk and lace wedding dress. The lace was up to like a turtleneck. There was silk along her neckline. The long train of the dress, the lace of the veil to cover her face. It was a white dress. He wore his black tuxedo with a white dress shirt that was really nice. He wore black shiny dress shoes.